Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco doing, except Marco's already done it, the top 10 worst old movies I watched in 2019. So, Marco's already given you his, these are mine, and I do have a dishonorable mention, which means that there's one I would have put in the top 10 that just barely made it, but I'll talk about that at the end. My the 10th one on my list is, and this is from uh, bad to the very worst. So 10 is bad, but
And
the
one
very
is
worst is
one is the
1.
very worst.
Okay, the the 10th one is, believe it or not, a Hallmark movie, but it's not like the usual Hallmark movie. It's not like the usual children's movie. It's a Christmas movie, and it's called The Santa Incident. And it may have been called by another name too for some reason, but I thought it was horrible. And the reason why is it's very violent, and what they do is, the story is Santa is in his sleigh, um, and he gets shot down by a missile launch from a fighter jet that was ordered by this guy who works for the government, who thinks that Santa is really an alien and not Santa. And he spends the entire movie trying to get him. And what happens is, at the very beginning, he gets shot down and he falls to the ground on his back. And if that wasn't enough, he drops down in a shipyard where there's huge machinery, and if it wasn't for these kids, he would have been killed by this big machine running him down. And I just thought, that's so unlike Hallmark. It's so unlike for Christmas or for children, because of the violence, and because this guy is, I don't know, he's so paranoid or suspicious that he has this, it's like this big thing about conspiracy theories that some people tend to have nowadays. He thought Santa was an alien. I just thought it was a terrible story and very un-Hallmark like. I won't even say anything else about it, but I didn't like
Why
that for
not?
children, the
Why?
violence.
You don't want anyone else to see it, so why do you care?
Because
Just
I'd never
go
even
ahead.
heard of it. This is like from 2010. I'd never heard of it, and now I know why they kept it off the air. I don't even know why they put it on. But anyway, the next one, 9, is called the ReAnimator, and
Boo.
apparently there's another movie that follows it.
There's another movie after that too.
How many are there?
There's just the three.
Okay, well, this is actually based on a story by H.P. Lovecraft, who's really good. I'd never, my children have read his works, but I'd never read anything. I'd never even heard of him. And he's just really good. And I actually listened to the real story that he wrote, the ReAnimator, and it was a really good story. But I thought the movie was very messy and cheap. And here's an example, of course, in a way it was a good thing. They had a cat that got killed,
That was a good thing.
and that is a good thing, but and it just looked really weird and bizarre, and I just I because it
it's
wasn't a real cat, it
it's
was a
so
fake
funny.
thing.
It's so funny because this movie, if they would have killed the cat and it looked real, Safi would have said she hated it. It's the worst movie ever made. It's terrible. Blah 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 blah. But since it actually makes the cat look fake, she doesn't like that either. So really, you just can't win. with Safi
No, I didn't like
because
this movie, and I thought it was terrible, and it was messy,
that's a lie.
very messy.
You
and
liked it.
No,
You said you did in our review. You said you thought it was funny. At some parts, you thought like him with his chopped off head and everything, and you.
yeah, I mean, there's a couple of little funny parts, but overall, I thought it was a very messy movie, and I think it's because their budget. They had a low budget, and they had a hard time making things work the way they should, and I don't know what the problem was, but anyway, I didn't like it. And if you do have a chance to listen to the story or even read Lovecraft, I suggest you do it because I think you'd be happy. Okay, now I'm on number 8, and believe it or not, it was Big Top Peewee. Now, I have watched a couple of episodes of the Peewee Herman TV show, and I thought they were very original, unique, very colorful, and happy, and funny, and interesting. And uh, this movie was bad because there was an element or two of his TV series, which is why people would have watched this movie, I would think. It's this movie, I don't know all how, there would be no way for me to know, but it was like Paul Rubens, that's the Pee-wee guy, Peewee
Really?
Herman.
That is?
He didn't, he wanted to be an adult in this movie, and he wanted to have a relationship, a grown-up relationship with a woman, not a fake, happy, weirdo one, fake like on TV, where he's mainly concerned with just, I don't know how to describe it. He's just so happy-go-lucky, and everything is interesting. He finds everything interesting about every little thing, and so this movie has some of that in it, but then he has this relationship with a woman, and it's like the movie was just made so he could do this, have these relationships. He does have kind of a semi-fake one that he would have on TV with one girl, but then this other girl, well, I won't even talk about it. That
He got a lot out of it.
yeah, he did. He got. I don't want to say. I just, because I don't even know how to talk about that in public. But anyway, another thing I didn't like about it, which was very un-Pee-wee like, and I just thought it was cruel and horrible, the way the townspeople acted toward him. They would never have had anything like any of his shows like that. Everybody was very happy and go lucky, and they would never have been so disrespectful and rude and horrible. I didn't like that. And like, who was this movie made for? And the thing
That was the point of why we reviewed it, actually.
yeah,
Was
like,
to kind
was
of
it
ask
for?
that.
Because adults don't. They really are not into watching Pee-wee Herman. It was a kid show.
I would watch it. Like, I would have liked it more if they had made it more adult, though. Like, they were on the right track. The kid stuff was the worst part of the movie, like with the fair and everything. Like, that was the worst part of the movie. The best part was him with the talking pig, and then him
Yeah.
with the townspeople, because they were funny. It wasn't the fact that they were just being mean to be mean. They were trying. They thought that that was humorous, and to me, they just weren't doing it enough. They were kind of doing it in a very tame way, so that kids could watch it too, and it would be good for kids too.
No, I don't think so. I mean, that could be true, but they're off mark, and he, if he wanted to do that, he should have. Oh, and the other big part of the movie that was really bad was that, and I wouldn't have known this if Robert hadn't looked it up. The movie
who?
was odd.
Who looked it
Marco,
up? Who looked it up?
Marco looked it up, and if it wasn't for him, it would kind of explain how the movie had a weird feeling to it. And the problem is they cut off a major part of the story that's introduced the movie. And it actually would have explained even what he was doing in his TV series, why he was there, what had he done before. And, you know, people, it's just weird because it's like people like Peewee, the way he has his life and everything set up and talking inanimate objects that used to be inanimate, it all came from somewhere. It didn't just pop down from the ceiling or the sky, and he didn't pop out of the sky. He had a backstory, and the backstory was very vague. I didn't even get it. It was just weird, and the reason why is because they cut off a whole part of it, and that would have explained what at least in a really big way why he was where he was and why he wanted to be there. And that doesn't cover up for all the other mistakes and the thing he had to have an adult relationship. But even the thing about having an adult relationship, that might have even explained that better. It might have had made a better connection throughout the movie. But he had this life or something as a singer, and like, who would have known? I think we would hear him sing once in a while, but I mean, they're little goofy kid songs. It wasn't, I'm not talking about a serious singing thing, you know, and that's what he was. He was a real singer, and he didn't like all the people bugging him, and he had to get away from it, and he moved to the country. That's how he got to be there. Well, they cut that all out. They just showed a little bit of that, but it didn't explain anything. It was like, well, what's that about?
It was almost like they kept that in there to appease someone. You know, like there was someone who originally wrote that, and they were upset that they were trying to take that out, and so they decided, oh, we'll just show that, like, oh yeah, we'll still show that, this little scene. And remember, it ended up being a dream too. It wasn't even a part of the story. It was just a dream.
Yeah, like, but you know what? It wasn't a dream. That was his real life. But it was presented to us like it was a dream. Like, oh, he's just having this happy dream, and really it's turned out to be a miserable dream because he was being bothered by these people, by fan club people and hangers on, and he just wanted to live in the country and have a nice life, and you just didn't know that. A dream, he could have had, or a nightmare, he could have had any one of a number of nightmares. I mean, we didn't know, and so that would have been so much better. And to me, it gave it a big black mark, because why would you do that? And this thing, and against him, if he wanted to have an adult relationship, then you should have, I don't know if it would have worked. You should have modified what you were doing and not made it so much like your TV show, which is for children. So, I mean, I really liked the show. I thought it was really clever, and it was just really fun. And I know it wouldn't last forever, but you could have made it last a little bit longer. If you didn't, I guess you just were sick of it. I don't know what your problem was.
He wanted symmetry.
Okay, well, I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but anyway,
Wink,
I gotta
wink.
move.
Remember?
Yeah,
remember who said that?
I gotta move on.
Yeah, I know.
So my next movie is called Subspecies, and it was actually a 3-part series.
4-part, actually 5-part.
Really?
There was a spin-off and there was a fourth one.
Basically, there's two vampire brothers. One is really ugly, and he doesn't even look like a vampire. It looks like some kind of a weird demon monster. He's real tall and gangly. And then you have this other vampire brother, and he's really very nice looking. Yeah, and he's shorter,
Yeah,
a lot shorter.
He's Twilight.
I don't know. I never watched that show. It wasn't my cup of tea. And anyway, so they have like this like rivalry, and there's a lot more.
That's not really the movie at all, by the way.
No, it's not even it isn't really a rivalry.
She's making it sound
it's a
so
crappy relationship.
I mean, that's what it should have been, but it turned out to be something else that wasn't good.
Anyway, these 3 girls come, and one of them is actually from the area, and this is in another country. I guess this is supposed to be, what is the name of that place?
Iraq.
The vampire place in Romania.
Yeah.
And something I can't even remember, but there was something wrong. They mentioned something. There's no such place, or I can't remember. There was something totally wrong, and about where they were. And the one girl who was from there, she actually was the best actress. Another one was just like I don't know she couldn't act.
She was dumb.
Dumb, whatever. And then the other one had this fake relationship with the cute vampire brother, and it was so fake, and I couldn't stand it. It just made me sick. And he was trying to protect them from the bad vampire, and I'm like, you're a vampire too. You may not be ugly and gross looking like your brother, but how are you living anyway? And I don't think that was ever brought up. And anyway, it's just stupid. I don't like it. And I thought, and the girls were from America, and they were awful, and I just couldn't stand it. The only one I liked was the one who was from the area, who actually seemed serious about what she was doing in being an actress playing this part and just being a serious person. And the other 2 were like puppets or something. I don't know. Horrible.
Well, one of them was as wooden as a puppet.
She what?
Nothing.
Okay.
Okay,
my next one is number 6. It's called The Oblong Box, and I was really mad about this one. And the only reason why it's not the worst and it's not the best of the worst is because there's Vincent Price is in it, and Christopher Lee, although he has a weird part where he doesn't really play anything special. And the problem I have with the movie that puts a whole, like somebody stomped on it they put ink all over their shoe, and then they just stomped on the script.
Whoa.
Was the fact that the name of this is supposed to be based on Edgar Allan Poe's story called The Oblong Box. Well, I've never heard of it. You never. There's all these other ones that you hear about. Here I'm at
the Raven, the Black Cat.
Yeah. Okay.
Murders in the Rue Morgue.
And I've actually read a lot of those, but I never heard of this, so I decided to listen to it because I couldn't find and I usually do this right now because I have so many things to do. I'll just listen to something like a book on tape, only it's a story.
The Telltale Heart.
So I could do something else at the same time, and I listened to the whole story, and It has nothing to do with the movie. They are nothing alike. Nothing. And they're both titles of the only thing that's resembling each other is the title. And I think Edgar Allan Poe, you know, I think he would have had grounds for a lawsuit because they could have called it something else. And there may be some things wrong with the movie, a few things wrong, but it would have actually it wouldn't have pissed me off, and I just thought it was a total black mark. And I think the story was interesting, but why couldn't they have been smart enough to give it a different title? I mean, I realized that they had made several of these movies, and they had Vincent Price and other him a lot, and other famous actors in these little movies. But I think they still would have gotten people to watch it if they would have come up with a different, scary, an implication of a horror story title. If they and you know, Oblong Box. What do you think of? Well, I knew it was a casket, and I thought, and so I listened to the whole story, and I was shocked that they could do this. It has nothing to do with the movie, not a damn thing, just the title. So I think Edgar Allan Poe, wherever you are, you could have sued them.
What?
Okay, the next one is number 5, and it's Ghoulies.
The first one.
The very first one, Ghoulies, is another multiple movie series.
A multiple movie.
4 movies, and this one it's weak, and it hasn't. It could have an interesting story. It's very weak and light. There's so many plot holes. It's like Swiss cheese.
It's boring too.
And and I was falling asleep, and I get really tired because I don't sleep well at night. So I realize I do sometimes fall asleep a little bit during a lot of things, and it may be really good, but this was really bad because there were so many plot holes. And like, why is this happening? Where did this come from? Why is it here? And it's really about this guy, and his father was some kind of cult leader, and this kid was he was going to kill this kid, his own son, and he was taken away, and his mother was sacrificed instead. So anyway, this is years later. The boy's an adult. He's actually in college with his girlfriend, and they're going to live on this property where his father once was. Well, what happened to his father? I don't know. They never even talked about it. And so he comes there, and his father kind of takes over him like he's hypnotized him or something, because his father apparently wants to come back to life, and he needs his son to help bring him back to life. I mean, oh, please. And then these ghoulies are little, I can't explain it. They come out of nowhere from some ceremony he does with these objects that he found in the attic or something, or he found in, God, it's just awful. And what's really hilarious is we saw all 4 movies, and the second one is really a good movie. It looks like it's made by different people who cared about it, and it's really good. It's better than this one. It's totally much better than the other 2.
Safi,
What?
guess who wrote the second Ghoulies?
Who?
The writer of ReAnimator.
Oh, well, he did a really good job with this movie because it was really good. It was, and I mean, it was entertaining. It was short. It was to the point, and it delivered. And this first one, it was like somebody was half asleep when they wrote it, and then the third, I don't even want to talk about. Well, that could be coming up, but anyway, this was a terrible movie. Okay, my next one is number 4. Oh yeah, well here we go. Here's Ghoulies III. And of course, this followed, you have the weak first one, which introduces the whole series. So you have to give it credit for that. You have 2, which was an excellent movie. I mean, it was entertaining and fun. And then you have 3, and it took place in a frat house on a college campus, and it was crap. It was just plain old crap, and it was almost an excuse for somebody to have half naked girls,
But
show their butts and their.
What was the point if they all look the same?
I don't know. That's what it was. Just a terrible movie.
It was funny though.
It was like
It had comedy.
somebody wanted to make a porno movie.
It was not a porno.
But they could only do a tiny fraction of pretend like porno, and it wasn't. Okay, but it was just dumb.
You didn't think it was funny when the security guard, when he came up to the girl and he asked for all of her underwear so that he could keep it safe from the panty raid?
Yeah, it was really weird because when I was in college, they had those things. So they did show that, and I didn't even know what that was when I was in college. I mean, they said they were having them, and I lived in a girls' dormitory, and they talked about that. I think this was more of a fraternity, sorority thing than it was. I lived in a residence hall. But anyway, it was just a stupid movie. It was terrible. You went from weak to really good to crap. And then the next one, number 3, is Ghoulies 4. And that was like lame. So you could actually give each movie a title. Ghoulies equals weak. Ghoulies 2 equals excellent, entertaining. Ghoulies 3, crap. And Ghoulies 4, the final one, was lame. And what the only good thing about it was the guy who was in the original movie with the son. He was older, and he's actually, I thought he looked really good. And he didn't have much of a part. I mean, he had a part, but it was like a whisper. The movie was like a whisper of his past. I mean, they just didn't explain anything about where he's been, what he's done. It was kind of in general, so you just kind of guessed. So like everything that went on, you had to guess what was happening and what was going to happen and why it was happening. And still, some of the outcomes in the movies, they're like, what? That's why I say, and it's like he was tired all the time, and it was like he was sick. And I guess they put that in the movie.
You said he looked good. Now you say he looks tired and sick.
Well, he was tired. He would fall asleep all the time. And I've been sick before like that, and I was tired all the time. And actually, the medicine I take makes me tired like that. And it was like he looked really good. But it was like he would sit there and like he would fall asleep. And I was thinking maybe he was covering because he didn't have any lines. Because there was no lines. And Marco said that in his research, he had to actually rewrite some of the lines or insert his own made-up ones.
Oh, he didn't like the script.
Oh.
Sorry,
okay.
and so he worked with the director to rewrite the script like almost completely. And so I think excuse me, I don't know. I think that they're the reason why the movie has so much weird like romantic comedy type stuff in it. Like you know how you have the ex-girlfriend and they have the banter back and forth on like, oh, we didn't work out because this and this and this, and oh, you should have been more like this, or oh, you used to be like this, but now you're like this. Like, I think that they added a lot of the comedy elements of the movie, including the scene that Safi is yet to mention.
No, I'm not going to mention that.
Okay.
Anyway, and I haven't even mentioned the Ghoulies in any of this. In the beginning, they're these brown figures. I can't explain it. And they're a little bit different from each other. One is bald head, one looks like a alligator, kind of. They're not very distinct. The second one, they're extremely distinct characters, and you actually could see them and figure out that what they were, or that what they looked like. They weren't just blobs.
And the third one, they're gremlins,
And,
basically.
yeah, and they wear clothes.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one, they because of the budget they had, which was not much, there were little people wearing robes and masks. And what they did was there were only two left out of four or more, and they would be in every scene. It's almost like if you had a book and it was a picture book, and or like say Dora the Explorer, and you would have a little picture of Dora the Explorer on every page, looking into the scene and what was happening, and maybe in the corner it would comment. She would comment about what was going on. That's what it was like. If these two ghoulie creatures were little people with robes and masks on.
They were like an afterthought.
And they were like in each scene looking in on what was going on, and they were goofy, and then they would sometimes they would run in and become part of the scene, and then they would leave, and then they would show up to the next scene. It was just stupid.
They weren't even funny, too.
No, they weren't funny. It was stupid, horrible movie. It's lame.
Okay.
Okay, my final ones are number 2.
Is this movie number 2?
Is Garbage Pail Kids, which is basically a movie about Cabbage Patch Kids who are rude and disgusting, but they can be good. They will help you if they like you, but they do terrible things like puke and fart, and they have nose running, and oh god, I can't. They're gross.
Oh, they peep on a minor getting out of the bathtub.
Yeah,
remember that?
Yeah, they're just gross. And what's really fascinating, I've mentioned that I'm a reseller now, and I was watching a video, and somebody sold this guy all the stuff, video games and stuff, but among them were these Garbage Pail Kids cards, collector's cards, and they were in beautiful plastic cases, and the guy who bought the haul, he's already sold one, I don't know, for a lot of money, and so they're worth a lot of money, so it's really weird. It's a crappy movie, but the collector's cards are very collectible. And they are pretty neat. We've seen them, and they do have them on eBay. It's probably the ones from this guy. So anyway, my final one is Halloween, the latest one. What is it called? Halloween 2009?
It's just called Halloween.
And you know what? I thought it was revolting, okay, to see Jamie Lee Curtis act like a deranged lunatic. And it's just such a stupid story. It makes me want to barf.
You thought that was her acting?
And the story is so dumb, it's a wonder I didn't laugh throughout the entire movie. It was I guess it was just too pathetic. There was no reason to even make it. I think they should stop making them. Stop now, while you're ahead. You've really ruined it, just like Star Wars franchise is becoming ruined. Apparently, this movie series is wrecked, and I realize that somebody was killed or they died, who was a major person who developed a series. They died like right in the middle of it, and I wish they just stopped making it. It's like, from us, it's like a tradition. Every Halloween we watch the first one, and I've watched, Marco's watched them all, but I've watched a few of the others, and some of them are really good, and and the first one is really good, and it's classic, and the music's I mean, the music's iconic, and but Jamie Lee Curtis, please stop, please stop, tell him to stop. Don't get going any more movies.
It's her fault.
Don't do it because it's terrible.
She
and
said,
you look like a dope.
There's people that say, I won't watch a Halloween movie unless it has Jamie Lee Curtis in it. And
well,
so basically,
say too bad.
So basically, this series is nothing but a train wreck, and it's just gonna keep going down the downward spiral, because people gotta have the same shit over and over and over again with Jamie Lee Curtis and John Carpenter and all that shit from the first one.
Stop swearing.
This movie makes me swear because it's such a piece of shit.
Well, it's just a terrible movie, and you know, a lot of these other movies, they're not as modern as this one. They're you know, a couple of decades old, and or they may not have even had the budget, or you know, they have a lot of excuses, a lot more than this one. I'm sure they had a good budget, and they could do whatever they wanted, and stop, and come up with another idea. Don't do this anymore because it's crap.
You liked it though. You
no,
liked this
I
movie.
didn't like it.
It's so funny.
That's why
because
it's on my number one of the worst movies.
Because the first time you watched it all the way through, and at the end I came in there, you were laughing, and you said, I liked it. I don't know. I liked that ending. I liked how Jamie Lee Curtis was fighting him, and I liked how she trapped him in the fire trap and set him on fire.
Yeah, but he doesn't die. It's like he's quote died in every conceivable manner on the planet Earth, and he never dies. And he's a mythological bad boy creature, and he's never going to die. And I'm sick of it. And stop doing this. Stop making this movie series. End it now. Come up with something new. I'm sure if you came up with something really good, people would come see it.
Well,
because they're hungry for a movie like a good horror movie, not a jump scare and
agenda.
Whatever, agenda driven, something really honestly good. Like, let's say Scary Stories, which is very minor,
that movie,
but they at least were creative.
It was PG-13 though, and that's a step in the wrong direction.
That's right, but
it
still,
should be rated R.
They were very creative with what they had to work with.
Yeah.
I mean, they went out as far as they could with what money they had and what resources they had to come up with something very unique and interesting, and they stayed true, because that's from another book series that we've actually read. Anyway, that's what you do. You don't do this anymore. Spare us and spare yourselves.
Well, they're not going to spare us, because there's a new shitty Halloween movie coming out this year. And then there's a new shitty Halloween movie coming out next year, too.
Well, that's horrible.
Isn't that nice?
And I'm not watching them.
Oh.
I don't care anymore.
It has Jamie Lee Curtis in it, though. Why wouldn't you care?
She would do herself a bit... Well...
Even though she's already died like 3 times in the series.
Everybody likes to... Every actor and actress, they want to work. And I understand that. And she and I are close to the same age.
She doesn't need work. She retired years ago.
And, well, I mean, but she might like to, hon. She might like to work. She might find acting fun.
Well, excuse me if I don't excuse her finding it fun to take a beloved series and destroy it and run it into the ground and turn it into one of the worst horror series in the universe.
Well, that's true. But whatever. I can't tell her what to do, and neither can Marco.
Well, you can. You
But
can just not pay to see the movie,
well, that's right, and I'm
which
not.
we didn't.
We didn't. We watched this at home on what did we watch it on?
Oh, I watched it on YouTube first, and then me and her both watched on Hulu
Oh, okay. Well, we have Hulu for a lot of reasons, and
and
so
YouTube.
not just to see uh, this movie. It was just, so. And I'm not saying we didn't see it for free. We have a membership to Hulu, but we use it for a lot of things. We wouldn't even be able to watch certain football because of whatever they did to the TV stations. I can't explain that either, and it's still going on. We can't watch a certain TV station because it's off the air. You can't watch it. Nobody can watch it, or I guess only certain people.
Oh,
I don't know.
yeah.
I can't even explain it. But if it wasn't for Hulu, we're back to my honorable mention
Yeah,
of a movie that.
this is
What?
after she did her top 10, she just wants to mention the fact that she had one dishonorable mention, whereas I had like 20.
Yeah. Well, Marco's seen a lot more movies than I have. My dishonorable mention is the peanut butter solution, and it was a movie made in Canada, and we reviewed it, and I it was I thought there was a lot wrong with it, but then the thing that I liked the best about it was that it was a very interesting original story. I just wish they had. I don't know what their problem was and why they couldn't do better. Maybe they hadn't made a lot of movies and they didn't have enough experience, but it was kind of like Marco looked this one up too, and to make it was something like a public service project. In other words, I think they'd had a lot of suicides, so they were trying to make an on purpose positive movie, and somebody had a really good idea, and it was for kids, and but they just didn't know how to do the rest of it. They didn't know how to implement the idea in a better way. So even though I didn't like it and enough to make it almost close to the top 10 bottom, I didn't want to put it in there because some of the trash that was in the bottom 10, well, they were trash, and this one actually they were trying to do a good thing. They weren't trying to like what I said, steal another title, steal somebody's original title of a book and pretend like it was like the book, and or hire really good actors to play in a movie that was trash and shouldn't have been made. But the people who made this movie, they had a good idea, but they just didn't know how to implement it enough to make it successful, I believe. So it is my dishonorable. The peanut butter solution is my winning honorable mention.
A movie that I begged her to watch for an entire year.
I didn't even believe him that it existed. It sounded like something, a children's book, like a detective book that you could read, and I thought he was just making it up. I didn't even believe it was a real movie. And it kind of wasn't because they made a lot of mistakes.
It was still a real movie, so.
Well, yeah, it was a real movie, but I mean, it could have been about 100 times better. So that's it, everybody. So goodbye.